Hello, and welcome to our virtual Masterclass Stress Awareness Month preview. And happy Thursday. We're nearly at the weekend. My name is Angela Scanlon, and I'm going to be your host for today. I am a telepresenter. I do a bit of radio. I host a podcast of my own. It's called Thanks a Million, if you're that way inclined. I write, and I am a recovering stress head myself. So I'm here in solidarity with everybody with my notebook at the ready for notes and advice and to learn as much as I can alongside you guys. So as you know, April is Stress Awareness Month, an annual event that helps drive awareness about both the causes and the cures, which is what we're interested in, especially for our modern stress epidemic, which feels more pertinent, I think, right now than it has ever done before, with millions of people around the UK experiencing high levels of stress now more than ever. So today's talk, we're going to welcome three incredible experts who are going to share a lot of powerful insights to help us identify and to help you guys identify the signs and to find the help that you need for yourselves, for your teams to combat stress in the workplace and beyond. Because we all know, yes, it might happen in the workplace, but we tend to bring that home and into our personal lives before, and the lines are more blurry than they have ever been in history. So if you've got any questions during any of our speakers' sessions this afternoon, please do drop them into the chat function below. You'll see it. You know how this works. You know, the tech thing. I feel like a YouTuber. We will be answering as many of them as we can at the end in our discussion. So onwards we go to our speakers. It's a fellow Irish woman. First up, it's Dr Pixie McKenna. She's a practicing GP, a presenter and UK medical guru, best known for her role on Channel 4's Embarrassing Bodies. Dr Pixie McKenna joins us to share her expert advice on stress, its factor in health, and to tell us what steps we can take to reduce it for ourselves and for those around us. Happy belated St. Patrick's Day and welcome, Pixie.
Thank you so much, Angela. It's a great pleasure to be here. To talk about a subject that is very close to my heart. I am a GP, but I'm also a member of the human race. So I also, like everyone else, suffer from stress. And I suppose one of the things that I kind of want to sort of get across is the fact that stress and illness are inextricably, that's a big word, linked. That one feeds the other, one drives the other. It's really, really important. I suppose to kick off, it would be good to get a definition of stress. So what is stress? Stress is something that causes strong feelings of worry or anxiety. And it's a state of tension that arises when you experience demands from your environment or from inside yourself. Now, a really common mantra at the moment is that we're all stressed. It's just part of life. And COVID has made people's stress skyrocket, as you just mentioned. Some people's stress has gone down, it's stabilized or it's subsided, but most people's stress has gone up. And from my perspective as a GP, I feel that the cumulative stress of COVID life has meant that a lot of people who on the face of things appear to be doing grand are actually finding it really hard. There's a bit of a stiff upper lip, there's a bit of a others are worse off, and you feel that if you moan, actually you're going to be called a whinger. You're going to be talking about first world problems when other people have maybe lost their jobs, lost loved ones, etc. But you know what we really want to get across is that it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to be stressed in the current environment. It's fine. You've got to talk about it. Don't, whatever you do, suppress it. I think one thing that's absolutely certain, I've been a GP for over 25 years, and for sure, work-related stress is one of the most common stresses for people. 4 in every 5 workers report that work is the key area for their stress. It's their key stressor. And listen, there's a great irony in that because the workplace is where we want our employees to be happy, to be healthy, and of course, as a result, to be productive. And, therefore, we're doing better in terms of our business, our industry. But as a direct result of being in that very environment, people are stressed. And if you look at this financially, stress is costing us money. A total of 40 million working days a year are wasted due to stress, and it costs industry £1.5 billion in the UK. In the US, that figure is £300 billion a year. Can you imagine what you could do with the health service with that? So in terms of NHS resources, what are we doing? We're using up 68 million GP appointments due to stress. We've got a staggering 5.5 million hospital admissions due to stress. Now, of course, when I hear these kind of figures, I think that's all very well, but at the moment, people can't get to see the GP. They're not going to hospital. So what's happening? All these stressed people, what are they doing? Where are they going in this current environment? They've been cast adrift. They're dealing with it on their own. I mean, even the NHS staff are stressed. And so we've got to get our stress awareness and our stress management right if we want to be happier, we want to be healthier. And as industry and organizations, companies and big business wants to be more profitable and more productive. So let's roll back on the stress equation. Now, stress is essentially an equation. S equals P greater than R. S stands for stress, P stands for pressure, and the greater than sign is greater than the resource. So if your pressure is greater than your resource, then you're going to be stressed. It can be very, very real, or it can be perceived. So real is some guy with an axe comes in my door. Whoa, absolute stress. Or real is also someone like my CAO or my boss comes in the door, also stressful. Now, the axe man is probably going to kill me. The CEO is going to fire me. But both of them create the same response. We're hardwired to deal with stress through our fight or flight system. And this is a mechanism that's evolved because through evolution, we needed to be able to react to threats in order to survive. We had to rise to the challenge in a physical way so that we ultimately then evolved physiologically to do so. And when the system of stress alert is switched on, we either put up a fight or we flee, we leg it, we go from the danger. So Axeman enters the room. What happens? The threat, it could be different to the threat that I might get if I got a piece of bad news, but the process that is triggered is exactly the same for all scenarios. And like an automatic cascade starts. So what happens to me? So my eyes and my ears send a message to the emotion center of my brain, an area called the amygdala. And that interprets these signals. And if it perceives there's a danger for me, it's going to go to the command center called the hypothalamus, and that's going to switch on my autonomic nervous system. Ultimately, it's going to press the big red button. And our stress mechanism is going into autopilot. Now, how does that physically manifest? So what happens is my adrenal glands kick into action. They start pumping out adrenaline and cortisone. Blood is pushed away from non-essential functions and goes right into my heart, it goes to my vital organs, because we need those pumping hard if we're going to take on this threat. Because we either have to fight or we have to run for our lives. Heart rate's going up, blood pressure's going up, breathing much, much faster because we want more oxygen to come into our lungs. My sight, my hearing, my senses, they're going to be sharper because I'm honing in on that threat. I want to know, right? I want to know where it is. I want to action it. There's sugar and fat going into my bloodstream because I need energy to fight off this threat. And blood is directed away from my bowels and my bladder because ultimately it's not very useful to go to the ladies in the middle of a stressful event. My senses are enhanced, my pupils dilate, my muscles tense, and I'm really mentally alert. I'm also sweating, my hair is standing on end, but the aim of the game is for me to either run faster or hit harder. So in the office setting, or in the queue at Pret, or like you are behind your screen today, this type of reaction is very rarely necessary because there's no threat to your survival. You don't need to run faster. You don't need to hit harder. The response is disproportionate. But if you push the red button for whatever stressful reason, that's the response you're going to get, whether it's a queue jumper, whether it's a bad email, or whether it's an axe murderer. And if we repeatedly push that red button, it results in the alarm response. But then we start to adapt to this alarm response and this stress response. And ultimately, it leads to exhaustion. We get bodily wear and tear. And some people start thinking as stress is, it's okay, whatever, it's part of normal life. But actually, when you start to tell people that stress is something that negatively affects your health in the long term, that's the biggest incentive for people to actually look at it and address it. And one of the things that stress in long term causes is high blood pressure. It also causes cardiovascular disease. People have strokes and heart attacks due to major stressful events. When there's a tsunami, or even when Christmas is there, people have more heart attacks because it's stressful. And this is the body's reaction to that stress. You could have a stroke. Diabetes is more likely if you're chronically stressed because you're pumping out all that sugar and that cortisone to address the stress in your fight or flight response. You become depressed, you become anxious, your immune system doesn't work as well, so you're getting sick all the time, your reproductive organs aren't working as well, so you've got fertility issues, you gain weight. Stressed people can eat as much as 40% more than they would normally eat when they're not stressed. It ages you. You get shortening of these things called telomeres, which are at the end of chromosomes, and it means that cells can't grow as quickly. So actually, do you know what that translates into? Wrinkles, poor muscular function, bad eyesight. I'm a bit of an advert for stress here, I think. And you also get gastric intestinal things. So you get ulcers, you get changes in your gut bacteria, and all of these have far-reaching consequences. And ultimately, stress can kill you. In Japan, which is known for its really, really harsh work culture and its arduous working hours, as far back as the 1970s, it's a long time ago, they coined a term called karoshi. And karoshi refers to sudden death due to work stress. And karoshi is a well-known phenomenon in Japanese culture. So it's kind of ironic, really, when you think that here we are in a perceivingly civilized society, when years and years ago, you read the Charles Dickens stuff, and they were sending people up chimneys and down mines and all kinds of things, and people were dying because of poor conditions and inhaling terrible fumes and getting limbs severed because of terrible machinery. And we're looking at us and we're going, we're so sophisticated, we've moved on. But actually, we haven't moved on. We are sending people right into a very, very, very stressful environment. It may not be physically stressful, but it is mentally stressful. And this kind of stress that you experience at work, because that's the most common place you're going to get stress, is an occupational hazard. It really is. And it's an occupational hazard for which you can't wear a hard hat. So I see a lot of patients who are stressed, and it takes ages sometimes to convince them that they are stressed. So you have to kind of tease out the symptoms and get them to join the dots. And sometimes people don't recognize that they are stressed. So for example, a physical symptoms of stress, what might they be? So tired all the time. Phenomenally common symptom in general practice, really, really common. Headache, tension headaches, really, really common. Worries then, of course, if you've got a headache, you're worried you might have a brain tumor. Not sleeping, weight fluctuations, irritable bowel syndrome, chest pain and palpitations. 1 million people go into A&E each year in the UK with chest pain due to unknown causes, and at least a quarter of them are there because of stress. Itchiness is a symptom, dizziness, erectile dysfunction, loss of libido, tooth grinding, jaw pain, tingling hands and feet, spasm in your eyes, muscles twitching, breathlessness, aches and pains, and then flare-ups of all your existing conditions like blood pressure, asthma, eczema, everything just kicks off, comes to join the party. Then you've got the cognitive manifestations. So what are they? Coming in, you're saying my concentration is bad. People are saying, they're saying I'm making loads of mistakes at work. I had an accident in my car. And my perception of things is all wrong, but really bad attention span. And even in the last 2 weeks, I've done mental health test scores on 2 really young guys who thought they had Alzheimer's because their memory has become so bad due to the stress that they're under. And then finally, you have the behavioral symptoms. How do we react? We get angry, we withdraw, we overeat, we abuse substances. Now, substances can be anything from something awfully hazardous like crack cocaine to actually taking things like ibuprofen, drinking too much wine, smoking. There are a whole host of things that people do to get a little bit of a fix to actually try and eliminate that stress. You notice that people overeat. They don't turn up for work. So absenteeism, if you've missed a lot of work, you got to think stress. Relationship issues, desk rage, you're known as the vixen in the office because you're always kicking off. Restlessness, nail biting, pulling bits out of your hair, scratching, regular illness, you're picking up every single infection that's down, comes up and down, and self-care. Self-care also goes out the window. So what we've got to look at is we've got to recognize stress is a part and parcel of life, but we don't need to accept it. We need to recognize it. We need to understand it. And the ABC of managing stress is quite simply, A is for awareness, B is for balance. Get the balance. And B is also for boundaries. Get the balance, get the boundaries. And C is for control. Because unless you're in control, stress is going to control you. You're not going to control stress. If you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change the way you think about it. You got to fix the fixable, accept the inevitable, and protect yourself and your health. We spend an average of 1/3 of our lives at work. So as employers and managers, you're really in a pivotal position in terms of tackling stress in the workplace, and in doing so, fostering a really happy, healthy, more productive workforce. And the actions and the interventions that occur in work can actually really, really make a difference, make much more of a difference than what I'm doing, the day-to-day job as a GP. So it starts very much with you. Any questions, I'm very happy to answer.
They are coming in thick and fast, so we're going to answer them at the end of the session, but keep those questions coming in. It's funny that, you know, balance and boundaries, I think, is going to really hit home with a lot of people, because it just feels like such a challenging thing to do, given how blurry the lines are right now. So yeah, we'll get back to that really soon. Now, according to the Mental Health Foundation, 74% of UK adults have felt overwhelmed or unable to cope at some point this year. Every year. So our next speaker is the perfect fit to share her incredible, open and candid story with us. Please welcome mental health advocate and inspiring speaker, Hayley Mulenda. Hello, Hayley.
Hey, Angela, thank you so much for an amazing introduction. I hope everyone is so well, and I'm super excited to get into this, and just want to say, Pixie, that was an amazing talk. I feel like there was so much insight, and I just want to say thank you just for sharing what you shared with us. And just for everyone here, hello, my name is Hayley Mulenda, and you know, I'm just going to tell you right now, listen, Boris needs to let me out. I think I'm going mad. Boris needs to let me out today, please, Boris. You know, I saw on the news that he's doing another address to the nation. I'm like, not again. Mr. Johnson, what do you want from me? Like, I'm just kind of like, what do you want? I just want to be out. I don't know if anyone here is with me on this, but I just wanted to kind of come on here and just kind of uplift your spirit. So with me and my story is the fact that I've been doing public speaking since I've been 16 years old. I'm not going to tell you my age, but you know, I think I'm still looking good and young. But yeah, I've been doing speaking for a few years now, since I've been 16. And I've had the opportunity to travel around the world and work with some of the biggest organizations, from Microsoft to KPMG. And, you know, I started off really young and I was booked and busy. There's this term, being booked and busy. But I just want to throw out, you know, being booked and busy can also mean being booked, busy and burnt out. And that's basically where I was. I was booked and busy and very burnt out. And I feel like last year, when the whole world, I honestly feel like the whole world had a pause. It was like the whole world paused because everyone was facing the pandemic at the same time. I think every single one of us, we were social distancing from other people, but I think it actually allowed us to check in with ourselves. You now had to ask yourself, how are you? Where are you actually at? Where are you? You know, you had to actually now start addressing the things that were stressing you in your life. Where you're booked and busy, you don't have the time to address the stress. You're booked and busy, you're running around. And it was at that time when life started to pause and where things started to get slower, I started to actually realize that, do you know what, Hayley, you're not okay. You are actually not okay. This time last year, you know, happy 1 anniversary for us all in the UK that have been in lockdown. We've been in and out of lockdown for basically a year, since about, I think, for 2 days ago. And one of the things that I done last year, actually in February, just before lockdown actually happened, is I took myself away to a really nice hotel in Kent. I spent some time checking in with myself, you know, doing all that self-love stuff, you know, treat myself to breakfast, walks along the coast. And I really had to check in with myself and ask myself a lot of questions, and ask myself, where am I at? Ask myself, what number are you at? You know, I do this thing where I check in with my friends, you know, especially my male friends, because those are the ones who are not so quick to be vulnerable, my brothers and my male friends, and even my partner. And I check in and say, on a scale of 1 to 10, where you at? Let me know where you're at. Let me know where you're at, because, you know, it's so easy right now to kind of, how to explain it, to show a profile but not show a person. Especially when it comes to social media, a lot of people are connecting with profiles and not people anymore. And I loved what Pixie said, you know, I'm part of the human race. I've met Melinda Gates, I've met the JP Morgan managing director, I've met some amazing people, different celebrities, and I've had the opportunity to be in the room with really inspirational people. But if there's one thing that I've learned through being with every single one of them, is every single person's a human being, and no one is immune to stress. No one is immune to pain. No one is immune to bad mental health days. No one is immune to trauma. No one can get away from that. It's part of life. And I honestly come and say, one of the aims that I have is to humanize the corporate world, to humanize institutions, to humanize the world again. Because what's happening is that we have the profile, but many people are forgetting the person. So we have, especially with my generation, the millennials, we are literally Instagram savvy. I can tell you how to market your business. I can tell you what the hashtags are going to work. I can tell you about the algorithms. I can tell you about TikTok. My partner right now is blowing on TikTok. He literally had 7,000 followers on TikTok last week, and now he's nearly touching 50,000 followers in 5 days. That's how quick his TikTok blew. So when I'm, you know, I'm telling you about algorithms and all this stuff, I got you, right? But a lot of the times, as I said, we are connecting with profiles and not necessarily connecting with people. And I think sometimes we need to check in with people and remember that we're human. I remember to check in with ourselves in the midst of it. So as I said, last year, when I took myself away, I had the opportunity to really ask myself a lot of questions. And I had a phone call with my brother. And I remember having this phone call with my older brother, and I was telling him, I'm really stressed out. I'm so burnt out. And I always say that the conversations with my brother have been the most impactful conversations of my life. Because in 2016, unfortunately, I got into a really bad place, and I actually nearly committed suicide when I was 18 years old. And I remember literally being in my first year of uni, and my mum literally rushed down to bring me back home because she heard that it got really bad. And I was in my house. To be very honest with you, trigger warning, I wasn't brushing my teeth, I wasn't getting up, I was literally not showering. My personal hygiene went down the drain, literally. And I remember having a conversation with my older brother at that time in 2016, because what happened is that my older brother literally was the person helping me and looking after me, because my mum actually had to travel to Uganda for a family emergency, and my older brother's the person who was looking after me at the time. And I remember he was working a 9 to 5, so sometimes he'd be calling me, but he'd have to be on mute, so just so he could hear me breathing on the phone, just so he could know that I'm there, you know. And I'm 18 years old, and I always say this, listen, the reality is that suicide is increasing, but the age is decreasing. And this is why I'm here, to share my story, to not only just spread awareness, but also to actually show that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, because I'm not in that place, and to give hope. And that's what I hope to do, inspire people to know that there is hope. And with my brother, I remember when there was a day when I actually decided, you know, I want to take my life this day. And my brother, this day, he was at work, he wasn't able to call me, and I had it all planned in my head. I was like, you know what, I'm actually going to take the pills. And I remember my older brother, literally, I was in my living room, and it's so ironic that a few years down the line, I now speak in my living room, the same living room that I literally ended my life in. And now I come and speak to thousands, sharing my story. And I remember in 2016, I'm about to take the first pill, and my brother literally burst into the room, and I didn't expect him to come back from work. So I'm here like, oh my gosh, like this is a really awkward moment. And I remember my brother literally sits down so calm, and I'm here thinking that he's going to literally like slap the pills off my hands or something. He literally just sits down, he says to me, Hayley, I'm going to tell you a story about Muhammad Ali. And I'm thinking, Muhammad Ali, hello sir, this is not the time to hear about boxing. And he said, no, this is not what you don't know what I'm about to say, but what I'm about to tell you really has impacted me, and I hope it's going to impact you. And he says to me, Hayley, one of the things that I've known about Muhammad Ali is that he goes into the ring and everyone's screaming, Muhammad Ali, fly like a butterfly, sting like a bee, fly like a butterfly, sting like a bee. And they're cheering him on, and he's in and he's about to fight, and he gets swinging left, right, jab, everything, right? And sometimes Muhammad Ali gets knocked down. And when he gets knocked down, everyone is cheering hard, saying, Muhammad, get up and fight. Muhammad, you can do this. Muhammad, get up and fight. But then my brother told me, it's up to Muhammad to actually get up and fight. Everyone can be cheering him on, but it's actually up to Muhammad to get up and fight. He turns to me and says, Hayley, mum could be cheering you on, I could be cheering you on, your best friend could be cheering you on, everyone could be cheering you on, saying, Hayley, get up and fight. But it's up to you whether you're going to pick yourself up and fight. And it was at that moment, my brother made a really hard decision that day. And that's a decision that probably changed my life. He left the room and he left the pills with me. And as my brother left me in the room, he made the decision to leave me with the pills, and I made the decision to stand here, well, sit here and tell you my story and tell you that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. So in terms of being booked, busy, burnt out, last year I was burnt out again. Literally traveling, and I've had the opportunity to travel to America, Uganda, Belgium, Norway. I've had the opportunity to travel around the world, all over the UK, and on top of that, I'm in university, well, final year, thank God. I can't wait to get out of here, but anyways, being burnt out, had another conversation with my brother. My brother is like my sensei, my guru. He's the person I call when I need that wisdom, because he picks me up in my lowest moments. And I'm so happy I have a brother that I can actually call my best friend as well. And, you know, he comes and says to me, Hayley, you are so amazing. You're doing everything to be functioning, but are you fulfilled? You are doing all these speaking engagements, you're traveling around, you're doing all this uni stuff, you're doing it, you are so inspiring, doing a podcast, everything, you are doing all these things. But it says, Hayley, when you were young, you used to love music. When you were young, you used to love drawing. When you was young, you was doing basketball. What about the inner child? What did you do as a child that you neglected growing up because of being booked and busy? I remember leaving that conversation and asking myself, what makes me fulfilled? What makes me happy, and what nurtures my inner child? Last year, at the end, when everything did lift, I was able to actually go back into the studio, and I actually jumped into the studio and started making music. And I started focusing on my happiness and investing into my happiness. I was no longer being booked and busy and burnt out, but I went from literally being functioning to fulfilled. And last year I had the opportunity to literally create my debut single that actually came out on the 26th of February, and we actually charted in number 5 on the day of my release in the rap charts. And my music video actually just hit 40,000 views literally today. And that literally just came from a conversation with my older brother, reminding me not to be booked and busy and burnt out. And what I wanted to remind every single one of you is that before you're anything, you're a human being. You're not a human doing. You don't find identity in what you do. You need to find identity in who you are. What fulfills you? What makes you happy? Every single one of us has that inner child within us that is still asking you, why did you neglect this as a child? Why did you leave this? So I guess what I want you to all take away from my talk and take away from what I'm saying is, what's the one thing that you neglected because of being booked and busy? The one thing that makes you happy, whether it's, I don't know, reading a novel in the bath, or literally cooking again, whether it's making music, whether it's learning the guitar, learning the piano, drawing. You could be drawing a pillow to drawing a flower, whatever that is. Don't neglect that. Don't neglect that. If there's something that I want everyone to take away from this pandemic, is that life is for the living. We literally saw tolls rise up. And I think it really triggered a lot of us to really just remember to live. And with someone like me, who has been very close to one of the darkest places, and I would never wish it on anyone. And this is why I do what I do. This is why I dedicate my time to help other people get out of that place and to share my story. With someone that has been in the darkest places, one of the darkest places, I can only just encourage you that investing into your happiness is how you want to stay in the light. investing into that inner child, investing into what is going to keep you fulfilled, and just remembering that you are a human being and not a human doing. You find identity in who you are and not what you do. Don't forget about a lot of us find identity in the LinkedIn titles. LinkedIn titles change. You will never change. LinkedIn titles change. I see people changing their LinkedIn titles all the time, and a lot of people find identity in the titles and the CEO. And listen, you can be a great CEO, but there is no happiness if you're a great CEO but you're not a great person. Sharpen you. Invest into you, build you. So I hope me going to the studio and me starting my rap career. Literally, I'm a music artist now. My music artist name is not Hayley Mulenda, by the way. That's obviously my real name, but my music artist name is completely different. And yeah, I hope that this is going to inspire you to just pursue what you love. Life is for the living. And yeah, thank you guys for listening.
Thank you so much, Hayley. I mean, you couldn't see my face for the duration of that, and Pixie as well. I mean, just incredible bravery. And I think the pandemic has really brought that home. It's like, that inner child and the things that we used to do that we somehow don't do anymore because they're not productive, or they're not, this idea that we are supposed to be machines that are producing relentlessly. So yeah, that really hit me, and I'm sure a lot of other people. Remember, any questions for Hayley or for Pixie or for our next guest in the Q&A. I have literally been writing them down like a beast. Okay, on we go. As the world's most successful hypnotist, Paul McKenna, PhD, is our incredible final speaker. I'm excited about this one. I've been reading his books for donkeys, sharing with us today his unique brand of personal transformation. We are very excited to learn, among other topics, how success and happiness, there's a theme, can be created by certain ways of thinking and acting in the world. Bring it, please, Paul McKenna, PhD.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, and welcome to what I hope is going to be a short but very positive and, in some respects, life-transforming experience. I've been talking to a lot of people over the last year, and there's a kind of recurring theme when it comes to stress. People are thinking about what they can't do and they don't have, and winding themselves up about it by thinking about it over and over again. Or the other thing that I've noticed people doing is catastrophizing, thinking, what if I get sick, or my family gets sick, or the economy crashes, or everything stops, the world stops spinning, if you like. And whilst I hear people refer to the coronaphobia, a phobia is an irrational fear. Now, it's totally rational to have some fear or concern about this virus because it's dangerous. But if all you ever do is think about everything that could go wrong, and that's the word catastrophizing means, there won't be any bandwidth in your thinking for creativity, joy, for all the things that make you feel good. Plus, it will exhaust you. It will be tiring to be white knuckles to life and thinking about everything that could go wrong. In fact, there's a saying by Mark Twain, which is, I've been through some terrible experiences in my life, and some of them actually happened. So I think it's a really good idea to have appropriate levels of concern so that you do things to keep yourself safe, but you do not exhaust yourself by worrying too much about everything, every little detail. And of course, some people say, well, that's easier said than done, because I'm a natural born worrier. And so I want to do two processes with you in the next few minutes. The first one is to do with the future. One of the other things I've noticed is that people have stopped making plans, or to some extent, they're not thinking about the future in the same way, because it's not obvious where the end point is, where things will return to a new normal. And human beings like certainty. We know whenever studies are done into what people most fear, the unknown is always in the top 10, sometimes higher than death. So even though we can't say exactly what will happen when, you can't lock down human imagination. And so I'd like you to do just a simple visualization process with me. And then after that, we're going to do an extraordinary meditation. I'll explain more about that in a moment. So what I'd like you to do, if it's safe and appropriate to do so, just close your eyes. Don't go off into a trance or anything like that. Just close your eyes. And I'd like you to imagine floating out a year from now, 2022. And I'd like you to imagine that you've had a really great year. Despite everything that's gone on, you've had a really amazing year. Now, if that's true, what must have happened in regard to your health, both physical and mental? Think about it. If you've had a brilliant, amazing year, what's happened in regard to your health, physical and mental? And then what's happened in regard to your relationships, personal and professional? What's happened in regard to your career? What's happened in regard to your finances? And what's happened in regard to your happiness? If you've had an amazing year, what are the things that have made you happy? Next, I'd like you to step back and make a big, bright, bold picture that represents all of those aspects of your life. So look at you a year there in the future, looking really healthy and happy. Yeah, see the light shining behind your eyes. How do you breathe, stand, gesture? This you that's really happy, joyous, confident, motivated, optimistic. And what are the things around you in this picture let you know your life's good? Relationships are good, career's good, finances are good, happiness levels are off the scale. Take a few moments to design that picture now and make it big and bright and bold and solid so that when you look at it, you get a good feeling. That's it. Yeah. Now make that picture even bigger, like the size of a cinema screen. And what I want you to do is float back from that picture 3 months and ask yourself, in order for all that really great stuff to have happened in my life, what happened 3 months before that? Now, you might get some very clear ideas, or it may just be intuitions, thoughts, well, it could be a bit of that, or maybe this sort of thing happened. But as long as you get something, that's all that matters. And then I'd like you to float back another 3 months from that and ask yourself what needed to have happened 3 months before that. That's right. And let your mind get an idea of the things that are happening in order to lead to that you a year from now that's real happy. And then float back another 3 months before that. And another 3 months before that until you're back here now. So as you look off into your future, you should see some images of things that are going to occur over the next year. And a year from now, a big, bright, bold, colorful picture of you looking healthy, happy, and your life good. Because the mind can be a bit like a heat-seeking missile. When you give it a target to point at, these big goals, something that is meaningful to you, then you've got a reason to leap out of bed in the morning. You have to have, big enough goals to get you out of bed in the morning, but small things on the way so it doesn't seem too overwhelming. So what we've created there is a set of ideas which will manifest either as pictures or thoughts 3, 6, 9, and 12 months from now, a target to head towards. Now, you don't have to think about this every day, but the more often you think about it, the more likely these things are to come true. One of my friends says, if you tell a lamppost your plans every day, they're just more likely to happen. So what I'd like you to do, that's right, is keep that in mind, because we tend to get more of what we focus on in life. And next, I'd like to do a little meditation with you. This was created by my friend Genpo Roshi. He's a Zen master, and he's more like a therapist than a priest. But he invented this meditation some years ago, and it's been the subject of much debate, in fact, and of scientific research. At Utah University, where they have one of these amazing new multi-million-dollar brain image resonancing chambers, they take a seasoned monk, 20-year meditator, put them in the chamber, they do their meditation, and they map their brain waves. Then they take someone off the street who's never meditated before in their life, and they put them in. Genpo does big mind with them. They have the same patterns. So this is considered to be a highly advanced form of meditation. And the reason I suggest we do this is because in our busy life, where there are lots of stresses all day long, we're often told Say at school, you learn, not to daydream. Stop daydreaming, lad. Come on, focus. And so what we tend to do is override the natural signals from our body that we need to stop, rest, and replenish. In fact, every 90 minutes, there's something called the ultradian rest phase, which is a natural cycle of rest and relaxation, whereby what happens is we get the invitation to relax from a sweet, soft feeling in our muscles and a sort of daydreamy kind of quality in our thinking. But very often we tend to override that. And so what research has shown is that people that tend to go with that once or twice a day actually have more energy in the long run, and they're likely to be less stressed. So I'm going to invite you to do this meditation with me now. It's very simple and straightforward. It just involves you sitting back and relaxing, and my voice will go with you as you go into a calm and gentle, peaceful pace. And I'm going to talk to various aspects of you. Like when you say, part of me wants to go to the cinema, but part of me wants to stay at home. It's not as though there are two yous. These are just ways of describing process. So take a deep breath in, close your eyes and relax if it's safe and appropriate to do so. And I'd like you to imagine how you would look if you were twice as relaxed as you are right now. And float into that more relaxed you. See through the eyes of your more relaxed self. Hear through the ears of your more relaxed self. And feel this deeper relaxation. And from this place, I'd like you to imagine how you would look if you were twice as relaxed as you are right now. And then float into this more relaxed you. See through the eyes of your more relaxed self. Hear through the ears of your more relaxed self. And feel this deeper relaxation. And from this place, I'd like you to imagine how you would look if you were twice as relaxed as you are right now, and float in to that more relaxed you. See through the eyes of your more relaxed self. Hear through the ears. Feel this deeper relaxation. And I'd like to talk to that part of you we'll refer to as the controller, part of you that likes to be in control. I want to thank it for doing all the good things that it does for you. But for now, for the purpose of this process, from the background of your experience, just to move to the background. Next, I'd like to talk to that part of you we'll refer to as the protector, part of you that keeps you safe. And I'd like to thank it for doing all the good things that it does for you. But for now, from the background of your experience. Next, I'd like to talk to that part of you we'll refer to as the evaluator, part of you that analyzes, judges, criticizes. And I'd like to thank it for doing all the good things that it does for you. But for now, if it could do them from the background of your experience, appreciate that. Next, I'd like to talk to part of you we'll refer to as desire, part of you that gets you things. And I'd like to thank it for doing all the things it does for you, but for now, if you could do them from the background of your experience, that would be great. So you let go of all desire in this moment. Next, I'd like to talk to that part of you we'll refer to as the seeking mind, the mind that seeks the way. And I'd like it to continue to do all the good things that it does for you, but for now, from the background of your experience. And now I'd like to talk to non-seeking, contented mind. Right now there's nowhere else to be, nothing to be done. Everything is as it is. Next, I'd like to talk to big mind. How big are you? How small are you? Is there anything you're not? When are you? Next, I'd like to talk to big heart, the infinite compassion. I'd like you to take any problems, worries, challenges, or stresses and allow them to exist in this expanded consciousness and transform. And enjoy this peace. Because soon it will be time to return to normal waking consciousness, feeling refreshed, relaxed, and alert, with a renewed sense of optimism and deep inner joy. So I count back from 10 to 1, awakening, refreshed and alert. 10, 9, 8. That's right, beginning to come back now. 7, 6, 5, feeling refreshed, relaxed and alert. 4, 3, that's right. You might want to stretch and yawn as you awaken. 2, 1, wakey, wakey. Well, I hope you found that relaxing and rejuvenating. Thank you very much. Back to you, Angela.
Thank you. I just want to lie down now, but I actually really relate to that idea of those like little, I don't know what you refer to them as, but that idea of micro napping. And actually there's a theme, isn't there? I feel, very different points of view, but actually to me, the kind of theme running through is the idea that we have choices to make, between whether a threat, as Pixie mentioned, is perceived or real. You can, get into yourself and decide, okay, am I going to be kind of brought off in the direction of stress, or am I going to center myself and recognize whether it is real, whether it's stress, whether there's a tiger in the room, or actually it's just your boss who's a bit, and I think Hayley, on a much more extreme level, that idea of having, the choice to sit there, with pills that your brother very bravely left, and for you to make a choice between life and death, and I think sometimes at the moment it feels like it's so scary, everything is out of our control, and that idea that Paul mentioned, that we do have control over how we perceive the world and how we choose to perceive the world, and that feels quite hopeful in the midst of all the gloom, right? So our Q&A, what are the warning signs of stress and how can you reduce or avoid that? I know you touched on this, Pixie, but like in a nutshell, how do we identify it and how do we avoid it?
I think anyone who's got a new onset medical symptom that particularly they've developed during COVID times, think about it being stress related and don't rule it out. Because it just feeds into everything. And as I said, 80% of illnesses have a stress component to them. And even if it hasn't even the thing that caused it, it's definitely contributing to it. So do a bit of self-checking and ask yourself those questions. They're not comfortable questions to ask because none of us want to be over-analytical, but it's really, really important because you never get to the end of it if you don't address the elephant in the room.
Yeah. And is it, you kind of mentioned about downplaying those things. It's like we accept, chronic fatigue basically as it's just how it is these days. And we kind of live with that chronic level of stress for years, for decades sometimes, before we fall over.
Absolutely, and people just normalize the symptoms and normalize behaviors like drinking. I have to have a couple of glasses of wine when I go in. I have to do this, and it's almost we're sort of normalizing everything, and we're creating ourselves. We're putting us into this stress nest, and just storing up trouble for the future. Sadly,
and I know burnout was referenced, and that idea of the pandemic obviously has contributed to that, but has made us really look at our behaviors and our relentless kind of expectations on ourselves to produce around the clock.
24/7, always on, and it seems like a joy for people to be working from home at the moment, but actually what I see is that people are coming in and their computer is their friend. It's never off. They're dining, they're eating their breakfast, lunch and dinner in front of the computer. They're doing everything. They're overworking. They're always on. They're working Saturdays and Sundays. Yeah, it's terrible. And they're not sleeping. And listen, honestly, it's a nightmare. It's a complete nightmare. We have to be honest with ourselves and tackle it.
It's a National Sleep Day tomorrow, I think, which I'm on board with. I mean, I think it should be National Sleep Day every day. But that glamorizing of, I only need 4 hours sleep. It's such a, hard kind of masculine. It's like pushing aggression. The only way to success, to fulfillment, to being seen is to keep going, kind of. And it's so unhealthy. And you touched on it, Hayley, that kind of relentless drive to the detriment of all of the things that lit you up as a kid.
I feel like one of the things that I find really dangerous, and I think it's very powerful but also very dangerous, is social media. I feel one of the things that you cannot do is you cannot compare your whole life story to one person's Instagram post. And one of the things that we have to remember is that social media will tell you success but will not show you process. Where someone might even come and say, I'm not sleeping for 4 hours. I mean, insomnia is not something that you should really glamorize anyway. And I really think that it's I think it's very, very important that a lot of people take what they see on other people's social media platforms, their wins on LinkedIn or their wins on Twitter or whatever social media platform, they take it as for face value, and they take it as, there's definitely more to the story. And, it's called Instagram story for a reason. People pick and choose what they're putting on there. They're showing you a story. So where people are kind of glamorizing this whole no sleep, listen, I'm the queen of rest. If I'm definitely the girl that if an email is coming through and if someone's not going to die because I'm not replying by the next morning, I'm not going to be like, oh my gosh, I need to write this email now, or someone's going to die. I'm like, no, I'll reply back to it tomorrow morning. Because at the end of the day, if I keep saying yes to everyone else, that means I'm saying no to myself. And I feel like 2020 was the year that encouraged me to say yes to Hayley. And sometimes you have to say no to others to say yes to yourself. And I would actually recommend every single person to read this book called Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud. If you've never heard of it, it's a really powerful book. And it really just talks about how to implement healthy boundaries and more or less how to say yes to yourself. And saying yes to yourself is not bad. I think a lot of us sometimes feel guilty when we're saying yes to ourselves and saying no to others. There is a healthy way of being able to say no to others so that you can say yes to yourself and your sanity.
Well, I think we've almost learned that saying no is quite self-centered or is a little almost aggressive. It's like, can you do this? No. Ooh! It's like an insult rather than a response. It's an expectation that yes is the only answer to a question.
Exactly. And I think it's very, very important that you constantly just remember that when you are saying yes to yourself, ultimately you are saying yes to other people, because you can't give 100 unless you yourself are 100 anyway. So when you are saying yes to yourself, you're investing into yourself so that when you can say yes to others, you are saying yes with your full chest because you spent time saying yes to yourself in the private space. So
Yes, with your full chest. I like that. Now, stress obviously gets a bad rap for good reason, but it also is, a part of life. There's a question here, a healthy reaction. What is a healthy reaction to stress caused by life changes?
Is that for me or is that for Paul still?
I mean, I don't know who that's for. Who feels equipped?
Okay, so yes, you're absolutely right that you can't escape the fact there will be some stresses in life.
Yeah.
And just a personal story. Years ago, when I was performing stage shows, I used to get very excited before a show. And a friend of mine, she's masseuse. She came around. She said, I'm going to relax you before your show. I remember getting so relaxed. When I walked on the stage, I was like, instead of going, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, I went, hey, welcome. And I didn't have just the appropriate amount of arousal, of stress to deal with the situation. In fact, I was reading an interview with Bruce Springsteen recently. Somebody said, do you ever get stage fright? He goes, no. He goes, I feel this like tingling and my butterflies in my stomach. And I start thinking about the gig, and I thought, that's excitement. Any more than that would be stress, would be frightening. And so we need a certain level of arousal in our lives to go do things. But when we excessively arouse ourselves, as the saying goes, burn down the house to roast a pig, if we're triggering the fight or flight response all day long, and we're responding to emergencies that never happen, because many of them are happening in our minds, then what happens is we actually fatigue ourselves. And picking up on what Pixie and Hayley said, this then leads to burnout. And so you can notice the signals or the symptoms before that. If you start to get bad moods, sleep disruption, feel a bit down, a bit low, bad-tempered with people, that sort of short-tempered, all these are sort of the early signs that there's too much stress in the system. And sometimes it doesn't have to be one big thing. It can be, psychologists call this background stress, where you've got lots of little things, kids are making too much noise, you get stuck in a bit of traffic, somebody's winding you up at work. None of them are huge, but they're just enough to have an accumulative effect to be getting you to arouse yourself too much, and therefore too often, and that can then result in burnout, as we talked about earlier.
Yeah, so just tuning in and listening to yourself. And I mean, you guided us into listening to our intuition, so finding those little pockets of space so that you can hear your body, your heart, yourself amongst the chaos.
Well, the meditation is designed to take you into a very relaxed place very quickly, and to stop thinking about self, so your desires, your protection, your control of everything. And so when you take away those aspects that are present in your conscious everyday life, there's more bandwidth for you to experience just natural joy and bliss, really. And so, as we only have a few minutes, I thought, what's a very quick way to get into a nice, relaxed state? Of course, what I mentioned with the ultradian rest phase is that every 90 minutes or so, there'll be that sensation of a sort of soft feeling in your body, and your mind will start to wander. And instead of having another cup of coffee and overriding it, once or twice a day, if you go with it. It happened to me earlier this afternoon. I was sitting there and I thought, oh, my mind's beginning to wander. I'm not driving a car or operating some heavy machinery. So, you know what, I'm just going to go with it. And I went with it. And then a few minutes later, I was back fully attentive, feeling more refreshed, allowing my mind and body to do some housekeeping.
I love that. That is permission from Paul McKenna for you all to go and have a nap right now. At 4:00 on a Thursday afternoon. I don't know what else you're here for. That's it. All we have time for. There are some more questions, but this recording, which I think will cover all of them, or has covered all of them, will be available for you to rewatch, and you can get in touch with the great gang at Speakers Corner if you've got any other questions, or you want any information on any of the brilliant speakers that we heard from this afternoon. I have thoroughly enjoyed it, and I wish it was longer, and I wish my light lasted longer. But thank you so much. Have a lovely day. Go lie down. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye.
Thanks, Pixie. Thanks, Hayley.
Bye. Thanks, Angela. Bye.